Okay, we're going to make a roasted sweet potato and rosemary bread. We're going to use a white sourdough for that, which has been cultured for around about 3 days. So we've got 3 days fermentation on the sourdough. Get a really nice sweetness out of the potatoes and full flavour. Get a really unusual sort of orange hue in the dough crumb as well. The rosemary is really fragrant. It's a great loaf, great for soups, salads, that type of products, and it looks visually stunning. Okay, so now we're at the stage where we've made a sourdough for the sweet potato and rosemary bread. This is how our sour at Welbeck starts out. It's quite putty-like, and this product is ready for a feed now. That means we need to add some water and flour to it to revive it. Before that stage though, you do need to create your own sourdough, and that's usually at least a 3-day process of mixing a little bit of flour and water together with a culture starter, maybe a little bit of honey or raisins, and that needs to stand for a day. That's called the mother. The next day we'll cover that, we've covered that up, we'll cover it and we add a little bit more flour and water to that. That's called the chef. Okay. 24 hours later, we feed that again with some more flour and water. You should see some movement in the sourdough there. That becomes the levain, which is basically sourdough. Okay. That needs fermenting for at least another 24 hours. So in total, it's around about a 3 to 4 day process. The good sourdough should smell quite acetic, vinegary, sort of pepper the nose when you sniff it, and it's full of sort of a lot of lactic acid. Okay, so that's an unfed sourdough starter. This product here we've got now is a sourdough which has been fermenting for around about 16 hours, and you can see we've got a lot more stringiness to it. It's light, it's fluffy. We've trapped a lot of CO2 production in there. So basically what I'm saying is we've made this sourdough so it's ready to go into the final dough, which is sweet potato and rosemary bread. So difference between that is a fully finished fermented sour. It's the one that requires feeding. Okay, but that's taken 3 days to get to that stage already. Okay, so I'd advise that if you've got a sourdough in your bakery, you work with the sourdough that you're using. Okay, so the day before you make the sweet potato bread, when you're refreshing the sourdough, I'd also recommend that you roast the sweet potatoes whole with the skin in an oven around about 200 degrees C for around about 30 to 40 minutes until they bake through and soft. You can see these are still steaming actually. Just skin them while they're still hot. And I'm going to add fresh rosemary needles as well in there. And we're going to mash that up, sort of bash it up. And what it's going to do is it's going to marinate. So the rosemary is going to release all those sort of really sort of aromatic oils in there. And let that cool down. And the next day, the sweet potato will be infused with the rosemary and get a more pungent flavour coming from that whole mix. Okay, we're going to make the sweet potato bread now. Essential ingredients we've got are the roasted sweet potatoes that I made yesterday with the rosemary, so that's infused nicely. Water, sourdough, matured, flour, yeast and salt. So I'm going to pour the water in again with the sourdough so that it'll release it from the bowl nice and easily. So I'm going to pour all that into the mixer. I'm going to add the flour. Salt and yeast, keep them separate. And then we're going to add the sweet potato mix. I'm going to mix that on slow speed until we've got some good dough development going in there, maybe around about 10 minutes, and we're looking at a top dough temperature around about 23-24 degrees. Sweet potato bread now mixed. You can see it's quite an extensible, well developed. It's got a sort of orange hue to it. You can see there's sort of large parts, particulates of rosemary in there. It's quite a soft dough. And you can smell the rosemary and the sweet potato and a little bit of the sourdough that's gone in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that out of the mixer and we're going to bulk ferment that for around about an hour and a half, and we're going to give it 2 to 3 folds at 20-minute intervals depending on how strong the structure develops. Sweet potato and rosemary bread, it's had around about an hour bulk fermenting. It's risen up, quite aerated again. You can see I've got the flecks of rosemary and sweet potato still in there. Got a little dusting of semolina on the top. I'm going to flip it out the board. I'm going to scale them at 640. We're trying to leave these pieces of dough undisturbed in terms of putting too much pressure on them. So we're leaving them nice and aerated, so we can get a light open texture. We've got the bread to that sort of shape, still nice, light and fluffy. We're just going to give it a little bit of a shape, rest it for around about 15 minutes, and then we'll give it the final shaping into a batard shape, and then we're going to put it into the cloth, proving cloths, and give it around about another 45 minutes proving at ambient temperature. The roast sweet potato and rosemary bread now, it's had 45 minutes in the proof. You can see we've got a nice sort of lift out of the proving. So what we're going to do is transfer the loaves onto the peel. I'm just going to give them a slight dusting flour. They've been coated in semolina already, but I'm just going to put a little bit of just white wheat flour over the top, because when we cut these, the cut will stand out more in the oven when we open it up. Put a cut down the centre, and then 3 cuts that way. And then we'll give those around about 25 minutes bake, release the steam. About 10-second shot of steam in there. We're baking at 250 with top and bottom pressures around about 7. When we inject the steam, the actual temperature will drop. So we'll be baking about 225 and it'll go back up to 250 after about 15 minutes. I'm going to take these sweet potato loaves out of the oven now. They've had 30 minutes. See, we're getting a lovely golden colour coming out of the loaves, really defined cut coming out of it, really nice attractive loaf.